We now return to Piracy Watch on DZRJ 810 AM, the voice of the Philippines. Here's your host, Sarah Jane Sugitan.
All right, welcome back to Piracy Watch, and joining me this morning, malapit ko na po maging co-host si Mr. Harry Tambotco of Super Brands, who also attended the high-level forum on innovation opportunities that we were talking about earlier with Director Carmen G. Peralta of the IPOPhil. You see that high-level forum on innovation opportunities is part of a series of fora that aim to discuss the missed opportunities basically that the country has. As I said earlier, the country is not lacking in creative and innovative people. We have inventions, we have new technology coming in from our very own Filipino artists and inventors. But the problem is those, especially students. So at an early age, they start experimenting and they are able to form solutions and invent new technology right here in our classrooms. And the problem is that usually they sell the technology or their inventions, of course, to not just richer people, but also to yun nga, yung brain drain, you know, and that occurs in the country, not just in the country, but also it happens to many contexts wherein the government is seen as lacking in support and infrastructure, providing infrastructure for these people who are inventing, say, the karaoke or medicinal values, like what the UP Manila representative was talking about in that innovation opportunity. But this forum is particularly supported and brought to you by the International IP Institute and the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. And one of their findings during the forum is that even in the States, only 7% of research or patentable technology is actually commercialized. So it's one thing to create innovation, to invent something, and it's another thing to commercialize an invention. And only with the commercialization does the creation of jobs come in, the creation of wealth, the creation of a sector that basically supports the marketing and the creation, the manufacturing of that particular invention. Mr. Tambotco was with me during that forum. What were your insights, Mr. Harry?
Good morning, everybody, to all the listeners. The high-level forum and with the topic missed opportunities is very, very interesting, to the point that the situation right now, for example, in the States, is there's a mad rush to find out what will be the next innovation. Right after the internet, it seems that there's a mad rush between the big companies, who are now multinational in scope, are trying to find out exactly ano ang susunod, what is it that's going to come out. Now, America has led the innovation over the last 2 decades. If we remember correctly, back then, maybe about 4 or 5 decades ago, it was basically the hardware, and it's moved into software, and basically even labor-intensive jobs have moved out of America, which is why they've moved in. For example, in the Philippines, even first manufacturing, they were moving out. I mean, what is really physically made in the States now? Then it became the service industry, which is why ergo the presence in India and the rest of Southeast Asia, and significantly the Philippines with the business processing outsourcing. Mm-hmm. Now, again, they are trying to look for the latest innovations. I mean, just imagine Steve Jobs, who just came out with the thinnest or the really super thin iPad. Mm-hmm. While innovations are being created, these ideas are not necessarily, just limited to the Americans. No? It's basically worldwide. Basically, it's people. And like you said, basically schools, the universities where the new technologies can come out, the new innovations. Here in the Philippines, is it true that we are lacking the innovations or missed opportunities, or really just a lack of understanding on intellectual property? Intellectual property meaning to identify or to protect whatever innovations you have. Now, we pride ourselves as Filipinos to be very innovative, and we've created a lot of firsts in the world, but what's happened is we've sold out basically to multinationals and big business and capital. Well, maybe it's not necessarily the fault of the innovators, but the fault maybe of the local capitalists who don't see or who are not in a mad rush to join what you call world innovation and to lead. Maybe this is what we lack. And of course, the active participation today of Intellectual Property Philippines is here to protect and to register and to basically cover these innovators. But it seems there's a very strong disconnect still with the registrants or participants who should go to IP. In that presentation, based on the surveys made by that institute, it was sad that in the Philippines, 95% of those registered are still multinationals that registered. I
Yes,
remember.
95% of the patent filers in the IPOPHIL are mostly foreign
Foreign,
filers. So there
foreign.
are only 5% local inventions and researches that are being patented that are filed as of last year.
I remember a story in one of my dinner conversations of this engineer who was head for research and development. He was with Intel, and when they were here, now they're out of the country, so I guess I can speak about Intel. When they were here for many years, very active, they were employing some 10, 15,000 people, and they were growing really fast in the tech business. What's happened was, every time their engineers or their staff would discover new innovations in their line, basically in the line, in the assembly, in the construction of those computer chips that they were very, very mainly involved in, they would reward the engineers but buy the patents and the innovation.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Now,
At least there's support. I mean,
yes, but
and that's something that any inventor would look for in the short term, the immediate compensation for what you have
but
created.
that's where we fall short. There again, we find a disconnect or what you call dun tayo na nagkakamali eh. The listeners, those of you who are listening, the important part of intellectual property is the ability to protect your invention and your inventions or your creations, be it for patents, trademarks, or trade names, or copyright even, be it for books, music, or whatnot.
But with patents, everything depends on at what point you want it protected, at what point you still want to own it, and what point you want to give it to the capitalists.
Yes,
turn it over.
But to sell it for $100, because that was the compensation
yes, it's a different
being
story.
given. Yeah.
So that's the issue that
Gimmick,
we will
yeah.
address when we come back right here on Piracy Watch.
We now return to Piracy Watch on DZRJ, 810 AM, the voice of the Philippines. Here's your host, Sarah Jane Sugitan.
All right, welcome everyone to Piracy Watch. Just before the break, we were talking about the forum that happened last Friday in the Makati Shangri-La Hotel, which was organized by the Intellectual Property Office of the Philippines and the International Intellectual Property Institute. There was a presentation by the latter, the International Intellectual Property Institute, or IIPI, that presented their study of the conduct of IP reviews of Philippine universities and state-funded research institutes, and provided an assessment of these institutions' capabilities to generate patentable inventions. Yan, according to the study, the forum aims to address the sad stories, and we have a number of sad stories of Philippine technologies being commercialized and capitalized on in other countries by non-Filipinos, which of course do not redound to the benefit of the Filipino inventors, much less our country, which is in much dire need of employment opportunities and growth of manufacturing sectors. Now, in that study, the study is the forum is a part of a series wherein the IIPI will also present its studies on the education of our state universities and our Filipino innovators, provide them with capability in disclosing their inventions, filing strategies in terms of patents, and finally the monetization, or how to commercialize their inventions and make money out of it. All right. Joining me on that forum was Mr. Harry Tambuatco right here with me on the studio. And earlier you heard Director Carmen G. Peralta of IPOPhil talking about, of course, the IPOPhil's advocacy as well as the Department of Science and Technology in providing infrastructure and patent support. Meaning, it depends on our Filipino innovators when and where you want it patented. First of all, do you want to own your patent or do you want to just sell it? And which is possible, which you as an owner or innovator or creator can do. You can relinquish all forms of ownership over your patent and turn it over to a capitalist partner. And then you can earn money right there and there then from your invention, or you can choose to find a partner and own the patent for yourself and develop that innovation or that research together with a financial partner rather than relinquishing everything to the capitalists. Harry, you were talking earlier about
it's
registration.
interesting. I think the situation that begs to be addressed is, when does one sell an invention and when does one hold on to it? Now, I think that assessment is solely upon the inventor. It's his decision to whichever way, because alam mo, depends talaga sa atin kung kailan ka nangangailangan ng pera, kung bibenta mo lang diretsuhan. But either way, maybe there is still a lack of awareness for these people, because maybe there's a growing frustration that they invent it here and they go to DOST, they go to the inventors clubs or associations, and what happens is they get turned off or scared that patents maybe cost too much, and before even investigating, reviewing or assessing their options, they rely on what the next person says, which is very Filipino, no? What your friend says and relatives and whatnot. And then without real assessment, they go about making a decision which really cuts them out, which we have seen. Now, if the percentages were slightly different in favor of local registration, it'd be acceptable. But 95 versus 5%, meaning that a lot of the innovations that were registered in this country were owned by multinationals or big capital business that's outside, not necessarily local, and 5% only local. So maybe the disconnect, as well as it's not just the inventor, but also the local capitalist who refuse or maybe are unaware that business opportunities rely not necessarily on just production, output, marketing of services and products, of, identified products or secured products that already sell. But the reality should be the other way around. It should be, what can you introduce? Because after all, things were introduced in the world. I mean, who would think the internet 20 years ago would fly? Even when it was, I remember when it first came out, I was relatively skeptic about it. I remember when I was a kid, talking to yourself, in a small gadget, wherein today everybody, we have 45, 50 million users on the cell phone. Innovation has taken place, and it's up to those people who think deeply, who think innovatively, to create these products and or services. Now, if you lose out on that, and the perfect example, like in music, is Freddie Aguilar, whose music went worldwide and was accepted by almost all the different cultures and languages in the world. The man, the inventor or the originator of that song, the composer, totally lost out on that opportunity. What's sad is you cannot backstep, you cannot backpedal. Now, karaoke, you mentioned earlier.
It's a Filipino invention.
Yes, the fluorescent light. Si Mr. Flores ba yun? Ang dami, there's Pertua, this oil that's created, which its viscosity allows it to cool the engine friction when the chambers inside the combustible engine are going up and down, creating that energy for movement, forward movement or backward movement. See, the problem is we sell ourselves short. Now, I'm not sure I know why we sell ourselves short. Is it because we don't have trust and confidence? Is it really the businessmen? Is it the inventors? Or is it a combination of both? I'm glad that intellectual property is now Intellectual Property Philippines is now more active and coming out with information, be it for the press, for radio and or television, to generate this awareness that is a requirement for the economy to go forward. Because ang missed opportunities, like what they were saying in that forum, that high-level forum, there was a lot of businessmen, business leaders in that forum, and they were just jaws dropped listening. I guess